So today we're going to learn how to factor a fourth degree trinomial. But before we factor a fourth degree trinomial, I'm going to review how to factor a quadratic trinomial. And we do that by using the product sum test. So we're going to take A and we're going to multiply that by C. I'm going to call this my product. The middle number is going to be your sum. So let's look at an example. So we have this quadratic equation. This quadratic trinomial. So it's in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So I want to take 14 and multiply it by -3. I'm going to call that our product. So 14 times -3 gives me -42. My middle number is my sum. So I want to ask myself, are there two numbers that I can multiply together to get -42 and at the same time add those same two numbers together to get 19? If I answer yes to this question, I can factor it by using the slip and slide method. So what two numbers multiply be -42 and add to be 19? Well, the two numbers are going to be -21 times 2, right? And then -21 plus, not -21, it would have to be +21, right? And the 2 would need to be negative. So it would have to be +21 and -2. So 21 times -2 is -42. 21 plus -2 is 19. So we can factor this. So the method that we have been using is the slip and slide method. So what we do is we take our 14, we slip it to the back, and we multiply by the -3. So we end up with x squared plus 19x minus 42. Now we can factor this. So we put x and x down, because x times x is x squared. And then the two numbers that multiply to be -42 and add to be 19 are +21 and -2. And the method that we're using is called slip and slide. So what you need to do now is the 14 that you slip to the back, you need to slide that back into your problem. And then you need to reduce these fractions. It's very important that you always remember when you're using slip and slide that you reduce your fractions. So we got 21 over 14. I can divide both of those by 7, and I end up with 3/2. 2 over 14 reduces down to 1/7. So the factors for 14x squared plus 19x minus 3 are the quantity 2x plus 3 times the quantity 7x minus 1. So we just factored, this was just a review of factoring a quadratic trinomial. We're going to use a similar concept to factor a fourth degree trinomial. But before that, I just want to make sure you guys understand what's going on. I want you to try this 5-minute check here. So take you pause the video, take as long as you can to answer these questions. It says use the product sum test to decide if the following quadratic trinomials can be factored. So let's look at the first one. We want to know, can this be factored? So let's do a product first. So let's take 15 times 2. 15 times 2 is 30. So You're looking at factors of 30. What do you want them to add to be? You want them to add to be the middle number, which is 13. So are there two numbers that multiply by 30 and add to be 13? Yes. 3 and 10. So what that means is this passes the product sum test. So yes, we can factor this. Right, so let's look at B. Can I factor this quadratic trinomial? Well, I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to do a product sum. So 16 is my sum, and then 15 times 5. 15 times 5 is 75. So did you find two numbers that multiply be 75 and add to be 15? I'm at 16. No, you can't. There are two numbers that multiply be 75 and add to be 16. So no, we can't factor this. Now let's look at our last one. Well, what's the leading coefficient on the last one? What's in front of the x squared term? There's a 1 there. So our 1 times 12. 1 times 12 is 12. So my product is 12. My middle number is 7. Are there two numbers that multiply by 12 and add to be 7? Yes, 3 and 4. So that means we can factor this one. So yes, we can factor it. Alright, so now let me show you how you can apply the same concept to a 4th degree trinomial. But it has to be in this format here. It has to be ax to the 4th plus bx squared plus c. It has to be a trinomial. Your first term has to be to the 4th power. Your middle term has to be to the 2nd power, and your third term has to be just a constant. Okay? You're going to do it the same way. You're going to just, A times C is going to be your product, B is still your sum. But instead of putting x and x down, what you're going to do is you're just going to write x squared and x squared. So let's look at an example here. I want to factor each of these expressions here. So if you notice, both of these expressions here are in that format I just gave you. Ax to the 4th plus bx squared plus c equals 0. So we're going to take 6 and we're going to multiply it by 15. 6 times 15 is 90. Are there two numbers that multiply by 90 and add to be 19? 9 and 10. So here's how we're going to factor this. We're going to use slip and slide. So I'm going to rewrite this as x to the 4th plus 19x squared. And then I'm going to take my 6, slip it to the back, multiply by the 15. That gives me 90. So normally when we do slip and slide, we just put x and x here because x times x is x squared. But our first term is x to the 4th. So we're going to put x squared and x squared here. We're doing the slip and slide method for a 4th degree trinomial. And then our two numbers are 9 and 10. So positive 9 plus 10. And we're using slip and slide. So now we got to slide that 6 back into our answer. So slide 6 back into your expression. Reduce your fractions. So now we got x squared plus 3 halves. X squared plus, we divide both of these by 5. I'm at 2, right? We get 5 thirds. So this quadratic, this 4th degree trinomial that we started with can be factored. It factors to the following quantities. The first one would be the quantity 2x squared plus 3 times the quantity 3x squared plus 5. Because remember, if you have a fraction when you're using slip and slide, you just slip that, your denominator, into the coefficient of your x squared term. So if you multiply this together, you'll end up with what we started with. All right, let's look at B. We want to try to factor B. Well, what's nice about B, it already has a leading coefficient of 1. So it's already in this step. So you don't have to slip anything to the back. So you're going to ask yourself, what multiplies to be negative 24 and adds to be 2? So we're going to put x squared down and x squared down. Now what two numbers multiply to be negative 24 and add to be positive 2? Positive 6 and negative 4, right? And remember, we started off with a leading coefficient of 1. So we don't need to slide anything back into our expression here. So these are our factors. But if you notice that second factor, the x squared minus 4, that's one of those special cases that we learned about. That's called a difference of perfect squares. So this is not factored completely. So we need to factor the x squared minus 4 one more time. We can't factor x squared plus 6. That's factored completely. But the expression x squared minus 4 factors to the quantity x plus 2 times the quantity x minus 2. Now we factored that fourth degree trinomial completely. So here are our factors. If you were to multiply these all out, you'll end up with x to the fourth plus 2x squared minus 24.